In 1972, a Washington quarter slips through history like a coded message from a forgotten mint. Its edges carry the silence of a Cold War world holding its breath. Across the ocean, a British penny from 1921 survives an empire's slow fade. Copper-worn, smooth by generations who never knew its true secret. Then comes the 1939 Lincoln wheat penny, born on the edge of a coming war. A humble cent that watched America change forever. 3 coins, 3 eras, 3 nations bound by time, metal, and mystery, each passed from hand to hand, unnoticed, unvalued, underestimated, until patterns begin to emerge where none should exist. Dates whisper to each other across decades, designs echo choices made in secrecy. What if these coins were never meant to be rare, but meant to survive? What if they were markers, not money? A quarter of power, a penny of empire, a cent of sacrifice, together, forming a story hidden in plain sight. And once you see it, you'll never look at pocket change the same way again. The Washington quarter dollar 1972 holds a significant place in the long history of American coinage. It continues the legacy that began in 1932, when the Washington quarter was first introduced to honor the 200th birthday of George Washington, designed by sculptor John Flanagan. The obverse features the left-facing portrait of George Washington with the inscriptions, "Liberty in God We Trust," and the year of mintage, while the reverse carries the image of a majestic, bald eagle with outstretched wings clutching a bundle of arrows and olive branches symbolizing strength and peace. The 1972 Washington quarter was struck at 3 different mints: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. The Philadelphia mint coins have no mint mark. The Denver mint coins carry a D mint mark, and the San Francisco mint coins with the S mark were produced as proof coins primarily for collectors. In 1972, all regular circulation quarters were made of a copper-nickel clad composition, which had replaced the 90% silver alloy starting in 1965. This change occurred due to the rising cost of silver and the need for a more economical metal composition. The copper-nickel quarters feature a pure copper core sandwiched between 2 layers of nickel, which gives the coin its distinct silvery appearance. The total mintage for the 1972 Washington quarter was high, with hundreds of millions of pieces struck, making it a common date for collectors. However, there are still details that attract numismatists, including variations in strike quality, mint mark position and condition, coins with strong luster, full details on Washington's hair, and the eagle's feathers are considered more desirable among collectors. The proof versions made in San Francisco are especially notable for their mirror-like surfaces and sharp design details. In terms of design, the 1972 quarter remained consistent with Flanagan's original artwork, although over the decades minor modifications were made to improve clarity and die life. The coin has a diameter of 243 millimeters, weighs 568 grams, and has a reeded edge. Like other coins of its era, it was widely circulated and used for everyday transactions in the 1970s, representing an important part of daily commerce in the United States. The historical significance of the Washington Quarter series lies not only in its design, but also in its representation of American ideals. The eagle on the reverse embodies the nation's strength, while the portrait of Washington reminds citizens of leadership and integrity. By 1972, the quarter had already become a familiar symbol of American coinage and would continue to evolve in the following decades, with design changes starting in 1999 when the 50-state quarters program was launched. Collectors today often seek 1972 quarters in mint state condition or proof quality, especially those with high grades from professional coin grading services. While most circulated, examples hold only face value. Pristine examples can be worth more depending on condition and rarity. Some error coins from 1972, such as off-center strikes or double-die obverses, are also sought after for their uniqueness. The Washington Quarter of 1972 stands as a reflection of American history, economics, and artistry. It links the traditional values of the early 20th century with the modern age of coinage and continues to be appreciated by historians, collectors, and coin enthusiasts worldwide. By 1972, the Washington quarter dollar had already established itself as one of the most recognizable coins in the United States. The coin had been in circulation for 4 decades, since its first issue in 1932, which was originally intended as a one-year commemorative coin honoring the 200th birthday of George Washington. However, the design became so popular that it replaced the standing Liberty quarter permanently. The Washington quarter was designed by John Flanagan, a sculptor. From New York, whose design was chosen from many submissions, his portrait of Washington was based on Jean-Antoine Houdon's famous 1786 bust of the first president, which is considered one of the most accurate likenesses ever made. The reverse of the coin featuring the eagle was also created by Flanagan and symbolized national pride and military preparedness. The 1972 Washington quarter was struck during an era when the United States Mint had fully transitioned away from silver coinage. The Coinage Act of 1965 had ended the use of silver in circulating dimes and quarters due to rising silver prices that made the metal more valuable than its face value. This led to the introduction of the copper-nickel-clad composition, which featured a pure copper core with outer layers of copper-nickel alloy. This change not only reduced production costs, but also ensured the stability of the coin supply during a time of economic adjustment. The 1972 quarter's production was extensive. Because the coin was heavily used in daily transactions, such as vending machines, parking meters, and public telephones. The Philadelphia Mint struck more than 200 million coins, while the Denver Mint produced over 300 million, making it one of the most common issues of the decade. Despite the large mintages, collectors still value coins that have survived in high grades with sharp details and minimal wear. The San Francisco Mint issued proof coins specifically for collectors as part of the annual proof sets. These coins were struck multiple times using specially polished dies, resulting in sharp designs and mirror-like fields. Proof sets from 1972 are still popular among numismatists for their craftsmanship and historical context. In the broader historical setting, the 1972 Washington quarter circulated during a time of cultural and economic change in America. The early 1970s saw the end of the Vietnam War, the Watergate scandal, and growing inflation. Coinage, during this period, reflected both technological advances in minting and the country's shift toward more modern economic policies. The Washington quarter thus served as both a tool of commerce and a small piece of national identity. In terms of varieties, there are some minor distinctions among the 1972 quarters. Some collectors have noted slight differences in die strength and the sharpness of Washington's hair and the eagle's feathers. Though not classified as major varieties, these subtle traits make certain coins more appealing to specialists. Error coins, such as double strikes, clipped planchets, or weakly struck coins from worn dies, also attract collector interest. Over the years, the Washington quarter design remained largely unchanged until 1999, when the 50-state quarters program was introduced. This program revived public interest in the series and brought new attention to earlier coins like the 1972 issue. Collectors began revisiting these classic quarters, appreciating their history, craftsmanship, and the stories they carried through decades of circulation. The Washington quarter of 1972 stands as a representative of an important transitional period in American coinage. It bridged the era of silver coins with the modern clad coinage system. It also continued to embody the enduring respect for George Washington, whose image has graced the quarter for nearly a century. Today, the 1972 quarter serves as both a nostalgic relic of the past and a reminder of the evolving history of the United States Mint, from the artistry of the early 20th century to the technological precision of modern coinage. The British penny of 1921 belongs to a period of profound transition in the United Kingdom, a moment in which the country was recovering from the devastation of the First World War, while simultaneously entering a new phase of economic, political, and social reform. The coin itself may look simple at first glance, but the circumstances that shaped its creation and circulation tell a story of national struggle, industrial change, and the evolution of British money minted under the reign of King George V, who ruled from 1910 to 1936. The 1921 penny stands at the intersection of old Victorian minting traditions and the new realities of a modernizing empire. In 1921, the Royal Mint was still coping with the after-effects of wartime demands, because during the war, enormous amounts of small coinage had been produced to meet the needs of soldiers' factories and civilian rationing systems. After the war, however, the economy shifted, inflation rose, and the public held on to coins differently, creating uneven patterns of supply and circulation. The penny of this year, therefore, reflects not only the artistic style of the early 20th century, but also the economic and industrial pressures that influenced how many were struck and how they entered daily life. The obverse of the 1921 penny features the portrait of King George V, designed by Sir Bertram McKennell. This portrait became one of the most recognizable royal effigies in British numismatic history, showing the king in a left-facing profile with a dignified expression intended to project stability. During a turbulent age, George V had guided Britain through the First World War and was now presiding over a period of Reconstruction trade weakness and rising labor unrest. The portrait on the penny symbolized continuity, reassurance, and national identity at a time when the empire was beginning to experience new political challenges, including independence movements in Ireland, India, and other regions of the world. The reverse side maintains the iconic image of Britannia, a symbol used on British coinage for centuries. Britannia appears seated, wearing a flowing classical gown, holding a trident in her left hand and a shield beside her adorned with the Union flag. The depiction represents British naval strength, stability, and imperial reach. But by 1921, this symbolism had developed new meaning. The British Empire was still vast, but the war had weakened its economic structure and challenged its global dominance. The presence of Britannia on the penny served as a reminder of the empire's resilience, but also reflected nostalgia for a period when naval power had been uncontested and industrial prosperity seemed unshakable. The metal composition of the 1921 penny remains bronze containing copper with small proportions of tin and zinc. The quality of metal used in coins of this period often varied due to the changing availability of raw materials after the war. Since copper supplies had been heavily consumed for ammunition and wartime equipment, the Royal Mint adapted its sourcing and manufacturing processes to keep coinage production stable. The strike quality of pennies during the early 1920s can sometimes reflect these fluctuations, with examples showing differences in color, strike depth, and wear characteristics depending on how long they remained in circulation and which minting batch they belonged to. The economic environment of Britain in 1921 exerted a visible influence on the coin's history. The year saw recession, high unemployment, and the aftermath of the coal miners' strike, which deeply affected industrial output. The use of small denomination coinage like the penny was essential in everyday transactions because wages purchases and savings habits relied heavily on coins rather than paper banknotes for small amounts. The penny served as a crucial tool in working class communities where small sums mattered greatly for food transport and household necessities. During these years, British citizens were adjusting to rising prices and fluctuating wages, meaning the penny held significant practical value. Another important aspect of the 1921 penny is its place in the evolution of British minting techniques. The Royal Mint was gradually modernizing its equipment, experimenting with improved press machinery, and refining metal preparation processes. These advancements aimed to produce coins with clearer features, longer circulation life, and lower defect rates. While earlier Victorian and Edwardian pennies sometimes showed inconsistent quality, the George V pennies from the early 1920s demonstrate a shift toward greater minting precision. The Royal Mint was also exploring designs and metal compositions that would eventually lead to major reforms in British coinage later in the century, including the shift toward decimalization. Collectors today view the 1921 penny as a key date in the series, not because it is extremely rare, but because it marks a return to steadier post-war minting after the disruptions of the 1910s. Many examples survive in circulated condition, showing the heavy wear typical of coins that passed through millions of hands during decades of economic activity. High-grade specimens, however, are highly sought after because the bronze surfaces of pennies from this era are prone to spotting toning, and marks that make well-preserved examples difficult to find. The condition of surviving coins reflects how extensively pennies were used in markets, factories, public transport systems, and everyday commerce across Britain and the Empire. In understanding the full historical significance of the 1921 penny, one must look beyond numismatics to the broader British landscape of the time. Britain was navigating renewed debates about trade unions, foreign policy, economic stability, and imperial responsibility. The Irish War of Independence was concluding, leading to the partition of Ireland in the same year. The nation was redefining its identity and adjusting to the social consequences of wartime loss, including changes in class structure, shifts in labor demographics, and evolving public expectations for political leadership. The penny was a silent witness to these changes moving through the hands of workers, soldiers, housewives, merchants, and children functioning. As a symbol of the country's shared economic life, the coin also reflects the cultural environment of post-war Britain. Entertainment industry growth, urban development, and public infrastructure improvements all involved transactions in which the penny played an active role. Penny fairs, penny newspapers, and penny tram fares were common parts of everyday life. The penny shop culture of the early 20th century represented an economic system where even the smallest unit of money carried weight and could affect family budgets. Penny savings banks encouraged disciplined saving among working-class communities, teaching financial responsibility and helping families build small reserves for emergencies. The legacy of the British penny of 1921 endures because it represents more than a monetary object. It is a compact artifact of Britain's transition from Victorian industrial might to 20th century modernity, symbolizing stability in monarchy tradition. In design and endurance in material, the 1921 penny continues to fascinate historians, collectors, and enthusiasts. As one examines the worn surfaces or the sharp details of a well-preserved specimen, they encounter the story of a nation rebuilding itself, adjusting to new global realities and confronting the challenges that shaped the rest of the century. The coin stands as a tangible reminder of the people who used it and the society that shaped it, preserving in its metal the echoes of British life in a defining historical moment. The year 1939 marked a fascinating chapter in the history of the American wheat penny, officially known as the Lincoln cent. This coin carries a legacy that began in 1909 when it was first introduced to honor President Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner. The wheat penny quickly became one of the most beloved coins in United States history, and the 1939 edition stands as a significant piece within that long story as we journey through the history of the 1939 wheat penny. We uncover a time when America was still recovering from the Great Depression. The nation was on the brink of great change, industries were starting to rise again, and the American people were holding on to hope. The penny at this time was more than just currency. It was a symbol of perseverance and national pride, minted in two main facilities, the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint. The 1939 wheat penny came in two varieties, the 1939 no mint mark penny struck in Philadelphia and the 1939 D penny struck in Denver. Philadelphia coins bore no mint mark, while those from Denver displayed the small letter D below the date. Each version tells a slightly different story of production and distribution across the nation. The composition of the 1939 wheat penny followed the traditional bronze alloy made up of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. This mixture gave the coin its rich reddish-brown tone, which, over time, often darkened to deeper shades of brown or even black. Depending on storage conditions, collectors often prize the original red luster that shines from coins that have been well preserved in mint state condition. The obverse side of the coin features the familiar bust of Abraham Lincoln facing right, surrounded by the words, "In God we trust liberty," and the date. 1939, the reverse side carries the two iconic wheat ears curving along the edges of the coin, framing the words, "1 cent United States of America," and "E pluribus unum," meaning out of many one. The wheat ears were symbolic of prosperity and growth, fitting imagery for a country still regaining its strength during the late 1930s. Minting numbers were fairly moderate compared to some earlier years. The Philadelphia Mint struck around 316 million pennies, while the Denver Mint produced about 15 million. These numbers mean that while the 1939 penny is not considered rare, it remains a cherished collectible, especially in higher grades. The value of the 1939 wheat penny varies depending on condition. Circulated examples are generally worth only a few cents, but uncirculated specimens can range much higher. Coins with strong details, sharp lines, and bright color can command impressive prices at auctions, especially those graded mint state 65 and above by professional coin grading services. Some red-toned examples have sold for hundreds of dollars. As we dive deeper into the story of the 1939 wheat penny, it is important to consider the broader context of American life. In that year, Europe was descending into World War II, while the United States maintained neutrality, but tensions were rising. The economy was improving, and new technologies were beginning to emerge. Automobiles, radios, and motion pictures were transforming society. Coins like the wheat penny served as everyday reminders of the nation's unity and progress. During this time, Lincoln's image on the penny was especially meaningful. His leadership through America's greatest internal crisis continued to inspire citizens living through global uncertainty. The wheat penny design itself was nearing the end of its run. By the late 1930s, plans were already being considered to redesign the reverse of the coin to better reflect modern America. Eventually, in 1959, the reverse wheat ears would be replaced by the Lincoln Memorial design to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. The 1939 wheat penny therefore stands as one of the later issues of the classic wheat-back design and serves as a bridge between two eras in coinage history for collectors today. Studying and collecting 1939 wheat pennies offers insight into minting techniques of the time. Coin planchets were prepared by rolling sheets of bronze metal through presses to the correct thickness, then punching out circular blanks. These blanks were cleaned and heated before being struck by dies carrying the obverse and reverse designs. The pressure of the coin press imprinted Lincoln's portrait and the wheat ears with precision, though variations in striking strength and die wear led to differences in coin quality. These small differences are what intrigue collectors who study minor details such as doubling weak strikes and die cracks. To identify unique varieties in 1939, quality control at the mints had improved compared to earlier years. Fewer major errors were released, but minor die variations still occurred, such as slight doubling of the date or mint mark. These coins are rare and can fetch higher values among numismatists. While the 1939 wheat penny may not hold the fame of rarer years, like the 1909 SVDB or the 1914 D, its charm lies in its connection to history. Each coin passed through countless hands buying groceries, newspapers, and stamps during a time when every cent truly mattered for many Americans. The wheat penny was a symbol of thrift and hope. The simplicity of its design carried a quiet strength. Much like Lincoln himself, Collectors often note how the coin's design reflects American ideals. The wheat on the reverse represented agricultural abundance and hard work, while Lincoln's profile stood for leadership, equality, and the enduring struggle for freedom. Even, the small phrase, a pluribus unum, reminded citizens of their unity through diversity. The 1939 wheat penny was a product of an era of rebuilding, but also of optimism as America looked toward the future. Numismatists and historians today study these coins not only for their monetary value, but for what they represent: the craftsmanship of early 20th century minting, the artistic vision of Victor Brenner, and the continuity of Lincoln's image across generations. When holding a 1939 wheat penny, one holds a piece of American heritage, a link to the pre-war world, and to the countless ordinary people who used these coins in their daily lives, from farmers in the Midwest to factory workers in industrial cities. The wheat penny circulated everywhere. It witnessed moments of hardship, resilience, and recovery throughout the 1930s and into the 1940s. As we continue this exploration, we can dive deeper into how these coins were used, how they aged over time, and how collectors today evaluate their beauty. Many enthusiasts categorize wheat pennies by color red-brown or red-brown, and by grade ranging from good to brilliant. Uncirculated coin grading plays a vital role in determining value and authenticity. As 2 hours of history unfolds, we trace the penny's path through minting, distribution, and collecting, uncovering the personal stories behind the metal. We explore how wartime shortages soon after 1939 would change coin compositions, leading to steel cents in 1943.